I have Mr. Bradley give the invocation. Is Todd Ware in the audience? Not seeing him and failing to have reminded him this afternoon. I ask Mr. Larry Bradley if he would give the invocation, please.
Would you bow with me, please? Father, we just pause now, just for a moment, prior to starting this meeting. Just ask you to be with us, guide us. Let us do the things that would be your will as we go forward for the betterment of the city. Bless all the people that are here tonight, and we're thankful for them. We just ask you to be with us and guide us in everything we do. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. I'm going to call this meeting to order. It is 6:01, Tuesday night, June 8th. Let the record reflect that all members of council are present. Prior to moving to the approval of the agenda, I would ask that you all bow your heads. We lost one of our captains, one of the brothers of our police officers. Just came through a few minutes ago. We paid our respects. I spoke with his brother just before this meeting, so I think a moment of silence would be in order. Please bow your heads. Thank you. God bless Mike Matthews. Amen.
Amen.
Need to move to the approval of the agenda, please. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A motion by Ms. Malcolm. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Ross Bradley. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. That passes. Moving to the approval of the consent agenda, which is the council minutes from May, Planning Commission, Historic Preservation, Downtown Development, and so forth, including the $207,490 for the water treatment plant Clearwell, the approval of the Jacks Creek wastewater treatment plant rehab, and the approval of the surplus and sale of seized vehicles. I need a motion for approval of the consent agenda, please.
Move to approve the consent.
I have a motion by Mr. Tyler Gregory and a second by Mr. Little. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. That passes. Moving to public presentation, we had 3 scheduled for tonight, but Mr. Hawkins' family has asked to move it to next month. They had to meet some family obligations and were unable to make it. But I would like to go ahead and read the 44th Annual National Nursing Assistants Week Proclamation. Is Ms. Hines here? Would you like to come up, Ms. Hines? Make sure I'm reading the right one, too. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Are you at Piedmont Walton at the moment?
No,
Well, heck, I'm glad you've even come farther than that.
I live in Covington, Georgia.
Oh, well, thank you, and I appreciate your being here. I'll go ahead and read this and then give you the signed copy.
Thank you.
Proclamation of the City of Monroe, Georgia, whereas nursing homes, home care, hospitals, and other long-term care agencies have accepted the responsibility for providing quality care and a quality of life for the elder, frail, and disabled citizens in our community, and whereas the well-being and happiness of these citizens depend in large part on the nursing assistants, home care aides, patient care assistants, and others who provide 85 to 90% of the daily hands-on care in nursing homes and other long-term care settings, and whereas these career nursing assistants are instrumental in promoting and safeguarding the physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual well-being of the residents, clients, and their families, and whereas career nursing assistants are trained professionals who collaborate closely with other healthcare providers to provide quality care and to elevate the status of their chosen profession. Now, therefore, I, John S. Howard, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Monroe, do hereby proclaim June 17th through 24th, 2021 is 44th Annual National Nursing Assistants Week, Nursing Assistants, Kindness in Action, and June 17th, 2021 is Career Nursing Assistants Day in Monroe, Georgia. I urge all citizens to join with me and others nationwide to celebrate the 44th annual observance of Nursing Assistants Week and to express encouragement and appreciation for the professional service performed by these caregivers in the public good. In testimony whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city of Monroe to be affixed this 8th day of June, the year of our Lord, 2021. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
To our celebration
wait, before you go any further, you can do it right behind that microphone. We can pick you up so everybody can hear. I'm sorry.
Well, we thank you, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, the nursing assistants of Georgia are trying to be recognized as our long-term care workers, are the front line to long-term care. We wrote to 61 different mayors over the city over the state of Georgia, and we've received over 20 proclamations thus far, as well as the governor of Georgia. So we are trying to bring awareness, and Covington, Georgia will be celebrating on the 17th at the Pavilion in the Trailblazer on Clark Street. It'll be a family and friends day for all CNAs to come out and the community show their support to them. We appreciate you very much.
Thank you so much. I know you've had probably one of the busiest years of your life.
Yes, I have.
Are there any questions for Ms. Hines? Thank you so much.
Did go and visit all of your nursing facilities and give them the information that the mayor did sign the proclamation. We thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for coming. Moving to the Waste and Recycling Workers Week proclamation. I believe Mr. Bailey said we have some of our team here. Would you stand, please? Yeah, don't be shy, Jasper. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. You don't have to stand while I read the whole thing, but I think you already knew, so. Proclamation for the City of Monroe, Georgia, whereas the nation celebrates the week of June 17th as National Professional Waste and Recycling Workers Week, and whereas waste and recycling workers have worked tirelessly in all weather conditions and at risk to themselves to provide sanitation services to protect us, help our environment, prevent disease, and keep our city clean, safe, and beautiful, and whereas the men and women of the waste management industry work hard to process, filter, and recycle millions of tons of garbage in the nation, and whereas the City of Monroe values and celebrates all the trash collectors, haulers, street cleaners, and waste and recycling workers employed to serve residents, and whereas in recognition of their vital work, the City of Monroe extends its sincere gratitude to the city's hardworking waste and recycling workers, and to honor those we depend on for the collection and proper disposal of waste, recyclables, and leaf and limbs to promote city clean and tidy communities. Now therefore, I, John S. Howard, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the City of Monroe, do hereby proclaim the week of June 14th through the 18th, 2021 as Waste and Recycling Workers Week, and calls upon all citizens to acquaint themselves with the service provided by the City of Monroe waste and recycling workers, and to recognize the contributions which make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Monroe to be affixed this 8th day of June, the year of our Lord, 2021. John S. Howard, Mayor. Gentlemen, thank you for the work you do, and I can tell you that the complaints we receive just because you miss a holiday when you're at home with your families for Christmas, your work the other 364 days of the entire year does not go unnoticed. And the one thing I want folks to understand is I had volunteers from your department that came out on Community Cleanup Day, which was not a paid holiday, and I appreciate the work that you put in. And Danny, thank you so much. Would you like to say anything?
We appreciate it. The only thing I want to add is that they did work throughout the entire year during the pandemic, and we only had 2 employees out of that whole time, actually 3, and I was one of them that was impacted by COVID. So I just want to make a note of that. So they worked safe, and they were had only 2 employees that was impacted during the whole year.
Gentlemen, I appreciate your being here. I'm going to pass this over to Danny, and unless one of you wants to take it.
I think we give them a hand for working.
Thank you. Next, we have public comment. I have 3 tonight. They're all speaking on the same issue. Each will be limited to 5 minutes. We may go through all 3 first, and then at the end, if there are any questions or comments from our team, we'll ask you 3 to stand side by side, and you can answer as you so desire. First, Mr. Jason Sams. from Washington Street. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me, Mr. Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen of the council, I've got some notes here, but as I was on my way here in the rain, I decided I would just I'd address you without looking at my notes. So first, I'd like to commend the hard work that you and all the city employees have done. I've seen the growth that Monroe's had over the last 5 to 7 years, and I'm really appreciative of that. Actually, my wife, Julie, and I moved here due to the hard work that you put in. Lately, there's been some disturbances and issues in our community, and they range everything from crime to loitering to lack of code enforcement that are concerning to us. And so we're here tonight as citizen partners to say to you that we want to work with each and every one of you to create solutions to the problems that we're experiencing. I think that some of the other people who are going to come up after me are going to be a little bit more direct in what we're seeing, but again, commend you for what you've done, challenge you to do more. There's definitely some issues. I don't know everyone, but those that know me will know that this is odd. We're going to need some more enforcement and some intervention from the city government to curb the issues that are happening. And again, they relate for everything from crime enforcement to code and things like that. So one point that I would make is I heard that we brought another marshal on board to the code department, which I think is great. As I looked at the budgets from last year to this year, there looks like there's a deep decrease in that department. And I question with that decrease and the issues that we're seeing, how code is going to be able to handle the enforcement they're responsible for. So I'm going to not use the rest of my time, and thank you very much for having me this evening.
Thank you. I'm going to invite you back up in front after we get through all three, if that's all right.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that's fine. Thank you.
Never called me Mr. Mayor before. Thank you. Mr. Maroli, Mike Maroli from Felker Street. By the way, the folks who've moved onto Felker Street, renovated homes, built new homes, have really changed the game over there, and it looks really good. But you still may proceed.
I was going to say, my name's Mike Baroli. My wife and I live on Felker Street. Our son and daughter-in-law live on Church Street with our 14-month-old grandson. Their house was the one that was struck by a car after the second to the last shooting that occurred in another district. We've seen an increase in gun violence, car breaks-ins, porch pirates, burglary, all of the above in our area, which brings the question, do we have a properly funded police department? I'm a former police officer and detective in Gwinnett County. I am in no way saying that our police officers are not doing their job. They're doing an excellent job, and I understand what they're dealing with. Okay, police cannot proactively, patrol the city if they're too busy mopping up behind the mess. Crimes continue to get worse in our area. What immediate action is being taken to curb the rise in violent crime? Do we need to increase police positions? Do we need to increase their salaries? Do we need to implement a sign-on bonus? Can we implement, a 1% tax increase to benefit civil servants, kind of like the SPOST? Instead of it going towards cities, the roads and all that, can it go towards civil servants? Georgia State Patrol, can the city ask for assistance, until measures are taken, to hire additional police officers? With the new traffic measures in place on Davis and Church Streets, the speeders have taken a path of least resistance by using other streets. Speed tables are needed to slow the traffic on Felker, Washington, and North Madison. What measures are being taken to ensure the reckless driving that we witness day after day is being addressed? Felker does not have sidewalks, making it very unsafe. I cringe every time our son and daughter-in-law leave our house to walk back to Church Street with Wyatt in the stroller, knowing any minute a car is going to come ripping down Felker Street that does day in and day out, every day. Most of our crime is coming from one area. Okay, does Monroe have the highest amount of people on government subsidy? If so, why? How has other counties and cities figured it out, yet we cannot? Why are certain districts not being held accountable? The obvious signs are not hard to see. Why has this behavior been allowed to continue? I've talked to officers that say they will not go into certain districts after dark by themselves, and I don't blame them. We've had areas in Gwinnett County that we are instructed not to go into by ourselves. It's not safe. Most of us here downsized and moved to Monroe with high hopes. We have seen improvements in businesses, roads, and parks. We all spend our money in town. We all go to local restaurants, the brewery, the convenience stores, the shops on Main Street, John's Supermarket. You know, we spend a lot of time and money in town. Honestly, after seeing these crimes worsen in our area, a lot of us have had second thoughts about if we made the right decision moving to Monroe. And that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morley. We'll ask you to come back up, too. I believe Ms. Mathias is next from North Madison.
City Council, we have a huge problem with housing in city limits. Driving around town, it's obvious 75% of the rentals in the downtown area are riddled with code violations. You can physically see it from the road. What is the current process to prompt landlords to A, keep their properties up to code, and B, to keep the property clean from junk and debris? Also, why hasn't code been out to Lacey Street? Per code violations, all properties should have grass. None on Lacey do. Also, they have 8-foot chain link fences with barbed wire surrounding the properties. Why is this allowed? I had to go through a bunch of steps just to get my front fence approved and put in. Why don't they have to do it? I know the grass in a front yard is piddly, but it keeps our community looking beautiful. Have any of y'all actually stepped into any of these low-income properties? Because I have. I purchased these properties. The conditions these people are living in are deplorable, and the city is allowing this to happen. This is not okay. People shouldn't be living in homes with rats that are leaving droppings in kitchen cabinets, have leaky roofs, broken windows, exposed crawl spaces, AKA no flooring or subfloor. All of this is extremely unsafe. These tenants need to know they can speak out against these living conditions. Do the citizens of Monroe need to go door to door and inquire about these people's living conditions and report it to authorities? Or can the city send out mailers? We need better options for low income, and right now, what we have isn't livable. Also, some of these properties are bringing nothing but crime and drugs, AKA Lacey Street and Davis Street. Most of these properties we have purchased have had drug paraphernalia in or under the home. Our good lower income citizens shouldn't have to live next to drug lords and gangbangers. Something needs to be done now about our housing crisis. Now I ask, what are your plans to fix this situation?
Thank you so much for coming. Obviously, I would say probably the most intense comment we've had in my time here, and you and I've had these discussions, and I appreciate all the work and your help yesterday, as a matter of fact. I do want to refer to R.V. Watts, our police chief, first. We talked about some stats last night. If you would address their concerns, please.
Well, I'll say this, Mayor. I definitely hear your concerns. I personally have been patrolling the streets here for the city of Monroe for 19 years, and some of those areas have been problem areas for that length of time. And actually, you're seeing generational type of crimes being committed. I've dealt with the grandparents, the parents, and now we're dealing with the children. But to address the concerns of, firearms and crime activity, since January of 2020 to current today, our officers have seized 172 firearms off the streets here in the city of Monroe. And I think we pulled a study just before I came over here that we've had since June of last year about 167 shot fires calls. Not all necessarily are actually weapons being discharged. Some of those are fireworks, but I thought that number is pretty significant to show from the law enforcement end of what these guys and gals are doing in uniform each and every day. I can tell you, you have a outstanding police force, and some of my officers in here tonight, I couldn't expect any more out of them. They're highly trained. Some of these council members have actually rode with these officers. I think they would attest to that statement that these men and women put their lives on the line every day. Now, I'm always an advocate, the former police officer, for more officers and better pay, absolutely. But it's not a problem that was created overnight, and it's not a problem that's going to get fixed overnight. But I can assure you that the men and women in uniform for the City of Monroe Police Department is doing everything within their power to keep the citizens safe in this community.
Absolutely. One question only.
Why hasn't the problem gotten under control? Well, I mean, there's so many aspects of that question that I could go down with you, and I'm not sure we want to talk about it in an open forum here. But, you know, drug dealers, things of that nature, you take one off the corner, 2 or 3 of them will take their place. We've worked together with GBI, we've worked together with FBI, we've did federal roundups and stuff. And you hit on a lot when you talk about some of those communities, rental properties that are allowed to be where they're at. So I hear you, and I understand exactly where you come from, and I would love to have a conversation with any one of you at the police department 101 where we could talk openly and candidly about the situation. But I'll also say this. The mayor and this council here is very supportive of our organization as well as these other organizations here as well, and they're doing everything within their power and means to be successful. And I can tell you this, from crime stat-wise, I'd be more than happy to share those with you outside of this to show you where in the last 3 years we've turned the tide on that, and we're going down on our crime statistics. But is it a uphill fight every day? I believe these men and women that's wearing the badge in here can tell you that's a constant battle. You're only as good as the last thing you did. So, but just rest assured, I promise you, come by. I welcome each of you to come by to meet the officers at our department. I encourage a lot. Our council members have come out and rode with these officers, and I encourage that. And I know COVID has put a damper on that, but it's important for our citizens. Of course, we do background checks for you ride with our guys, but for our citizens to see for themselves through the front windshield of that patrol vehicle what it is these men and women face each and every day. There's a lot that goes on that the citizens of Monroe do not see, and do not see each and every time these officers put their lives on the line, and they do. And I'm very thankful for them. I'm very thankful that we still have men and women that are willing to put the badge on and go out here and stand between the gap between good and evil. It's very much needed, and it will always be needed. And I tell you, one of the challenges for us as a law enforcement agency is trying to find people now to come do the job as a police officer. That's challenging across this country. You're seeing crime across the country, not just in Monroe, but across this country, just getting worse. And so I don't have all the answers. All I can tell you is we're doing everything we can to try to address the issues in our community, and I think that, I can show you, not think, I can show you that we're doing a good job of that. Do I want it to be better? Absolutely.
Thank you, Chief. And as we talked last week, and for the weeks and months previous, this was the first step that you come in and make everything known so our entire council can hear. Next step is to meet either with our Public Safety Committee and Chief Watts, or Chief Watts, however you would decide to do, whatever would work best. I want Mr. Probst to talk about traffic.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just to address that one question specifically on Felker Street. So we had that traffic calming meeting back on March 30th. We solicited comments from everybody. We're taking those to heart. Felker Street was one of those that was mentioned many times over as now a cut through off Church. So we are working with our engineers to figure out the best possible solution, whether that be, some speed tables or a sidewalk down one side. We're looking at all those angles right now, so I appreciate those comments. And one other question was on the budget as far as reduction in code enforcement. And really, that was not a reduction in code enforcement per se. What we did is we split out 2 positions in economic development and planning. and just move those into their own division. So that's what that difference is on paper. It wasn't a reduction at all. In fact, we added that second marshal, and I think we're probably on the right track to add another one or two.
Thank you, Mr. Probst. Are there any questions?
Mr. Mayor, may
Yes, sir.
I say something?
That'd be great.
Okay, I'll try to be quick about this. I want to give y'all a little bit of a historical perspective about this problem.
Mr. Dickinson, I want to interrupt for just a minute. Would you three who spoke like to come forward? Because you're going to get some questions.
And I want to ask you something when I do that. For any of you in the audience that don't know me, my wife and I moved to Church Street almost 40 years ago into the historic district. When we moved to that street, you had two categories of folks living on the street. You had little old ladies who were trying to hang on to their houses, and you had slumlords buying up those big houses, chopping them up into apartments, renting them out to folks who were not up to any good. In the house next to mine, I remember seeing people one night get thrown through a window, literally through a window. That house at that time belonged to a city council member. So, my point is this: it's getting better. It really is. Because the house the Stewarts live on Church Street, on the corner with the high school, my wife and I bought that house from a slumlord 20-something years ago. When we went into one of those apartment units, we found drug syringes laying with the diapers of these people's baby that had been in there. That's what we had. Now it's a beautiful home, well maintained. This is the thing. It's a fight. And I thought 20-something years ago when I sat over there where the mayor sits, that the solution is easy. We'll just, run out the slumlords. We'll clamp down. We'll change this. We were making great progress. The recession hit. That set us back greatly. We're making great progress again. This is what's essential. We need folks like you. I'm getting old. I can't do it anymore. We need the young people to come in, and y'all dig in. Don't say, oh no, I might give up and go somewhere else. I regret coming here. This is a wonderful city, and it is on its way to a spectacular future. But we've got 2 or 3 major slumlords. We've got one that has almost 1,000 units in this city. You don't get rid of that, as I've learned the hard way, overnight or in a decade or now in a quarter of a century. It's a fight, and it's a long fight. You don't ever quit. You don't ever just turn away and say, well, this problem is too big. No person who sits up wants to see that kind of thing happen in our community. None of us. And it's a tragedy that it did happen. But if you look across America, I'll leave you with this. It can happen anywhere. I mean, the violence can happen anywhere. I see this thing where that little 6-year-old boy got shot doing nothing but riding in his mama's car down a freeway in another state. I'm a runner. I see 2 joggers get shot at in Atlanta and 1 walker get hit in Atlanta in what's supposed to be a fancy, classy neighborhood. It can happen anywhere. So just please, don't quit. Dig in. Join us in the fight, because every person up here is committed to making sure these things don't happen. So we're not going to give up. Don't y'all give up. Okay. All right. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Do I have any other questions or comments from council? Please say yes.
I'd just like to point out a couple of things about the police department, I guess, is staffing. We have, for the last few years, added staff every year, and we're getting ready to go into budgeting for next year, and I hope we'll add staff again, this year. So that is something that we're conscious of. Obviously, we can't double the staff size, but we are adding every year to the number of police, and that's important. Second thing is you had mentioned, maybe, someone mentioned maybe asking the assistance of the State Patrol. And Chief Watts does talk to them on a regular basis, and they do patrol the city for speeders, you know, not the crime detection so much, but from a speeding standpoint, so that allows our officers to spend more time on some of the other issues that they do, rather than speeding and traffic kind of issues. And so I just wanted to, you know, point that out on where we're saying. And the last thing is Chief Watts invited you or anyone, I guess, to come visit his office and go over statistics. If you look at our statistics now, we are down in crime. You don't see that because the crime that we have is more visible. The shootings, the crashing into, you know, neighbors, how your son-in-law, you know, that's a very visible kind of thing, and it is very visible. But crime overall and violent crime is down. So we're thankful for that. It's still way too high. The other part, you know, and I just wanted to point those things out about the police department. I encourage Chief Watts invited people to come visit with him, and I would encourage you to do that, because he's got a very open police department and willing to talk to anyone about it.
Do you have any other questions or comments for these three?
Well, I'd just like to say that when it involves a landlord-tenant situation, it appears that we ought to be able to intervene more quickly than we actually are able to do by law. And we've learned that through the course of some different situations. But certainly, I think we've had some information come our way most recently, and we hope to be able to be a little more aggressive in that respect from a landlord situation.
I'm buying a house right now that Patrick put a sign on the front, and I asked him, how did that process take place? And the tenant complained. And I think if we can let the tenants know that they don't have to live like this, and they can complain about their living situation, we can control it a lot better.
Well, but at the same time, they have to have somewhere to go. And it can be a very touchy situation. If they complain and there's no option or anywhere for them to go, and it's touchy.
And that does go back to the 4 or 5 main property owners. If you say something and can't go somewhere else, and you're all of a sudden looking for a place, and the property owner is the one you turned in, it's an uphill battle, obviously. The investment that we've made, it really has 4 cornerstones. First, being code enforcement. Second is law enforcement. Third is community and social investment, which is what we've done downtown. And then fourth is our parks infrastructure. So as folks want to move here because it's awesome, like you did, that helps areas build up. And so it brings in tax revenue to allow us to pay for more police officers. And we're doing everything we can with our code department within legal means, obviously. And look, we could hire 10 of them tomorrow. This is a problem that's gone on my entire life. And one of the property owners has been one of those same property owners my entire life. The other ones, since I was just a kid. And then we have some who've joined the fray, and it's disappointing. But it's something that, it's a battle that we face every day. And I know you see it. And what's happened is, in this particular case, a lot of times there's been stuff that have happened in certain areas of town, but when they spill over into your neighborhood, that's when you see it up front. And it's scary. There's no doubt. I heard the shots Tuesday night after the meeting, and exactly where they came from. Ross was doing a ride-along at the time, so he was with our team from the PD. But it's a challenge that we're going to continue to face. And like David said, y'all got to help. And I would encourage, if a person is, if a tenant is in a position that they do have someplace to go and there are major issues, got to call it in. It may be a little tougher if they don't have a place to go, but if you find out they've got a place to go, you make sure they call it in. I want to refer to other council members if you have any questions or comments.
I think a lot of things we don't actually understand. You're not living in the position that they're living in. I've seen people where we actually call code, and once you call code, where they gonna go after you call code? Because once he addressed the landowner, at that point, he gonna put you out there, apartment or wherever you are. Who will you go to next? But obviously, if they really had somewhere to go, they wouldn't be there anyway. So what's the next step for where they're going to go? When you asking them to call us, then we put pressure on Pat to reach out to them, and then they put them out the house. So what's the next step, where they're gonna go? When you said call us, we called Pat, he reach out to the landlord, they put them out. Now what's the next solution?
Well, so just to, well, so one of the, so one of the things that I
But
think
a lot
that
of
we
people
can,
around Monroe don't want low-income houses.
But we have good citizens that are low income that need better housing. I'm buying a house where the sewer line was cut off and it was dumping into the crawl space. That's disgusting.
Oh, I agree things need to be done, but you almost making it seem like we're not doing anything. I think the police officer and RV doing all they can to patrol the streets, and like
But the point is,
You
you
can go-
build better low-income housing. Those that are there are not going anywhere. You're just going to add to it. And we're going to have more than 60% rental properties in Monroe.
yeah, so one of the
So
things
it's a
that.
double-edged sword.
So one of the things also that's happening is, and I even mentioned on the post whenever we talked earlier, that, you know, Habitat for Humanity, the connection that is being made between, you know, that Sadie fostered and that Hope Monroe tried to work out. I mean, there's been a lot of initiatives that have really tried to tackle that very issue. One of the biggest things, and Norman and I were just talking about today, one of the biggest issues right now is literally the cost of material. I mean, and you know this. Yeah, I mean, you know, a 2x4 that used to be $2 is now $10. And so it's almost impossible to build now an affordable house, right? And so one of the things that we're even trying to pass tonight is changing the overlay of the city so that you can make a smaller footprint house, so that you can work towards more affordable housing. One of the issues that just so happened to pop up was this. But a big component is the funding issue, right? So if you have someone who's low income, they don't necessarily always meet the criteria for what banks need or for what other people need for them to get loans to be able to get in houses of their own to decrease the amount of rental properties. So one thing that Habitat really offers is that lending component, because they are their own lender. So they're able to take people who may not traditionally be able to get a house and put them in one. And so they also, and to go along with that, they also have programs like a Brush with Kindness, right? A Brush with Kindness. Are there a couple more, right? Do you remember them?
USDA has one.
Yeah, USDA. They're, and yeah, some are homeowners only. Yeah, most of the programs are homeowners only. Again, so that is another issue that you run into, is that oftentimes people don't want to give money or assistance to people who don't own their own homes because of the landlord issue. So these are all, and again, oh, sorry, I meant to say thank you. Thank you first off for being here and seeing these things and combating them. And just like everybody else has said, and like we've told you, like, we appreciate the help. We need help in the fight. We can't just do it alone, and we can't even just legislate our way into those things. But whenever we continually know the things, the problems that we're facing and the hurdles that we have to get over, the more people that are aware of that, then the more we can bring more guns to bear on, okay, well, what does this look like? And if people even band together and say, okay, well, we want to purchase more properties as a collective, and then, you know, maybe we take a little hit on the property, but we can sell it for a lower price, or we can, you know, rent it for a lower price even than it's gonna take to pay for the note, so that you can give people an opportunity. You know, all those things are ideas. Unfortunately, it does hit you in the pocketbook a little bit. But with people like Hope Monroe working on things, and with Habitat working on things, and if our citizens will get together and make those same kind of approaches, you know, all those little bits turn into a larger whole. So thank you again, and I really appreciate you guys addressing those things and bringing them up. But know that those programs are there and let your neighbors know about them. And, you know, if there are people who are homeowners that, you know, a lot of times they don't know about these programs. So, you know, informing and educating is a huge part of what we try and do. Get out there and let people know about utility programs that the city has. So a lot of times people will say like, well, I can't afford more rent because of my utilities, but there are programs to assist with that. And there's also, you know, we've had the conversation a lot of times that if your home, and again, we just had this conversation today, if your home's in a better condition, a lot of times you won't have to spend as much on utilities and you can spend more on rent. You know, so a lot of this is education and talking with your neighbors and saying, hey, do you know that these options are available? And that's something that we often try and do, but if you guys could help us with that, that's another thing that we need, is because more hands and feet letting people know, hey, these are the options you have. And so, you know, contacting, well, any of us, we will try and put you in touch with more resources, and we'll, you know, try and make a way for people to take advantage of them, because we do have them, and we often find that people don't know about them. So thank you very much.
It's certainly okay to reach out to those landlords and let them know what you think as well.
Of course you
Don't
did.
stop. Keep connecting.
Well, one of the things that you provided me with yesterday, that particular owners of particular homes, that I will be addressing personally and saying, we need your help. You have 10 homes on this list. We need your help. So it's more of a carrot than a stick. That when you get into the day-to-day legalese, who wrote the laws? The property owners wrote the laws. So there's a lot of protection there. Patrick can go and say, this is your problem, and then they fix it. And then so many days go by, and there's another problem, and then they don't fix it, and then it goes so many more days, and then it finally goes to court, and then how are the courts run? Well, by the property owners. So trying to accomplish the stick approach has penalized us for a long time. So if we go with a carrot approach that, hey, if you fix these up here, you're going to make more money in the long run, because frankly, that's the way it works. And the good news with rates and what we had come up with last year, I believe, was a scrape and rebuild program that if you have a home on, I'm going to say more than 1 of an acre, somebody might have to correct me if I'm wrong, you can scrape it and rebuild more in its place. So you're maximizing your density, but you're also maximizing what could potentially be your profit, and it could actually put more people in quality homes that they can afford. So,
Or sell that piece and get a premium for it, because that 1 acre could yield up to 10 units to the acre to the next developer. And you can maximize your profit now and say goodbye and let the next person have it. So that's one thing we've taken the approach toward.
do I have any other questions or comments?
So thank y'all for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, and this is a battle that's not going away soon. I understand it. I know we'll talk about it a whole lot more, and I expect you to come back. Jason promised me last week that you're not going to give up on this, and I know you're not. And I am more than happy to, any one of these folks will be more than happy to meet with you anytime to hear concerns, and we act as best as we possibly can. But thank you. And by the way, budget request on the police officers' RVs asked for 6 this year. I think we could afford 2. We're trying to move things around so that we can afford some more as well. But thank y'all for coming. Next, we'll move to the public hearing, the ordinance to amend the official zoning map. Mr. Kelly?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the ordinance to amend the official zoning map. It's basically a cleanup and a addition to the map of all zoning actions that we've taken since the last official adoption. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions for Patrick? Hearing none, I'll declare this portion of the meeting open for the purpose of public input. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor? Kind of thought this was going to be the answer. Is there any person who'd like to speak against? Hearing none, we will move that into the action to be taken in just a couple of minutes, and I'll declare that portion of the meeting closed. Moving to the zoning ordinance for the code text amendment number 10, Mr. Kelly.
Yes, sir, thank you again. This is a text amendment to modify the zoning ordinance, changing the boundary of the CBD, and also including the IOD reference. The CBD is being removed from a zoning category and made an overlay. And as we discussed last week, that's basically the crux of it. If you have any specific questions, we'll try and answer them.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions for Patrick? Hearing none, is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak in favor of the ordinance? Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak against the ordinance? Hearing none, I'll declare that portion of the meeting closed, and we'll revisit that in just a few minutes. Moving to new business, the preliminary plat review at 1301 Alcovey subdivision. Mr. Kelly?
Yes, sir, thank you. As you said, this is a preliminary plat review, 1301 Alcovey Street. The applicant has presented it to us. We made recommendations to the Planning Commission for some corrections to the plat. I don't know if they've been accomplished yet, but we will make sure that those are accomplished before presenting for signing. And the Planning Commission also recommended approval based on the corrections that were made. And I would just add that those corrections plus any anomalies that occur due to the corrections would need to be corrected as well. But either way, we'll get them in compliance so that it'll be ready for signing. We recommend approval.
Great, I appreciate that. I'll entertain a motion. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. Is there a second?
I'll second, just amending that to make sure that the considerations Pat mentioned.
With those considerations, yes.
With considerations. As noted. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Moving to the application of spirituous liquors and beer and wine on-premise consumption at the Brown Fig. Miss Adams, are you present? I know you are, I just have to be official. I saw you when you came in. Would anybody like to meet Miss Adams? She offered to bring appetizers, and apparently was told no. She didn't call us. I will entertain a motion at this time.
Motion to
I
approve.
have a motion to approve by Ms. Malcolm. Is there a second?
Second.
Is that you, Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Ross Bradley, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Moving to the fiscal year 2020 audited financial statements. Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to call up Adam Fraley with Malden Jenkins. He is with Malden Jenkins, who is our external auditor, and he will present the 2020 fiscal year comprehensive annual financial report.
Mr. Braley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'm Adam Fraley, partner in charge of the external audit for the city of Monroe with Malden and Jenkins. And I'm here tonight to present the annual audit report and results. You should have in your packets, probably in digital form, the comprehensive annual financial report. I'll refer to it as ACFR occasionally, and to shorten that up. And then also, the city this year was required to have a single audit, which is auditing of federal expenditures. Excuse me, the city did have two major programs that we were required to audit, the Coronavirus Relief Fund and the Community Development Block Grant. So we did audit those as well. And then you should also have the auditor's discussion and analysis, which is kind of the colorful document here. And it pretty much has a summary of the audit results, a little bit of the highlights of the numbers, and also what we have as required communications for all of you. So I'm gonna pretty much go through this, and I'm gonna hit it kind of high levels. So if you got any questions, feel free to stop me or ask at the end. So So just a little bit about Malden & Jenkins. I'm going to begin on page 3. We are a full-service CPA firm. We do have, our largest niche in the firm is serving state and local governments. We provide over 100,000 hours a year to a local government practice, and these actually could be updated. It's about 550 governments with about 150 professionals serving those type of entities. You can see a breakdown a little bit there of the different types of governments that we serve. Myself listed at the bottom as obviously the engagement team leader, and then Will Durzis was the engagement manager and conduct of the audit field work and the test work. On the next page, as I mentioned, we're a full-service CPA firm, so this just lists some of the other services that we provide, some of the other industries we work in. Again, just a little bit of information about Malden & Jenkins. The next page, page 5. So the city is required by law each year to prepare a set of financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles and have those statements audited by external auditors, that being us. The city did put together a comprehensive annual financial report, the financial statements in accordance with GAAP, and we did our test work and we did render our opinion. Our opinion is an unmodified audit report. In layman's terms, that's a clean opinion. What that means is that based on our test work, the respective financial statements are considered to present fairly in all material respects the financial position and the results of the operations as of them for the year ended December 31st, 2020. Going to the next page, so you've heard me mention comprehensive annual financial report. And again, by state law, the city, just like other local governments in Georgia, is required to put together a financial statements and be audited. But a comprehensive annual financial report goes above and beyond what state law requires. What that includes is these additional sections you'll see on page 6 under introductory section, and then also under statistical section you'll see in the bullets there. The statistical section specifically is quite robust, 10 years of history on the city, both financial and non-financial statistical information. So a lot of good information there. Another good place to read as you're looking at the comprehensive annual financial report is the management's discussion analysis. Kind of gives a narrative form behind the scenes of the numbers, what went on with the city during the year. So those are good sections I'd encourage you to look at. As I mentioned, the city goes above and beyond by preparing a comprehensive annual financial report, and they seek and are awarded each year by the GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association, the award for excellence in financial reporting. So kind of a moment there just to give a big pat on the back to the city's finance department for putting together such a good document. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and you know, getting that award from the GFOA, meeting those program requirements. Okay, on page 8, at the bottom there, you'll see the city ended the year, and this is government-wide, if you will, so it's kind of all the funds and everything all put together. The government-wide had total assets of about $219 million, offset by liabilities of about $90 million, and the difference between those two numbers resulting in a net position of about $128 million. A lot of that is tied up in is in infrastructure, as with any city. And after the infrastructure is backed up, some other restricted by outside party enabling legislation amounts of about $13 million, leaving about $24 million in net position at year end. That's the amount that's kind of considered for available operations. Going over to page 9, you'll see at the top there, the change in net position during the year was about $10.8 million. You'll see at the very top there. And that was what was added to that net position that I was referring to. At the bottom there, obviously the general fund is the main operating fund of the city. But we've got a couple pie charts on the next couple of pages here, breaking down the revenues, the different components of revenues of the city. And then on the next page, the expenditures of the general fund, and breaking those down as well. You'll notice there that by far the largest expenditure of the city of $8 million is in public safety. On the next page 11, this is a history going back 5 years of the difference between revenues and expenditures for the general fund. And so you just kind of see the historical, kind of how things have behaved there. Sometimes, cities, there's a planned use of the equity position. It's called fund balance. There's a planned use of that, and maybe expenditures will be a little more than revenues, and that's often by design. This current year, you'll see that the revenues did exceed expenditures. And because revenues exceed expenditures, on page 12 there, you'll see the net change in fund balance, which was adding to that equity position, or that fund balance for the general fund, was about 1.8 million. And you'll see a historical trend of that on page 12 as well. On the next page, in similar fashion, you'll see the expenditures and how they've behaved during the year as compared to the fund balance over the last 5 years. And so, a lot of times, you can kind of compare that fund balance, or that reserve, if you will, to the total annual budget of expenditures and kind of see percentage-wise how you are. And you'll see there at 2020, you're about 38.5% of your annual expenditures. So that's a pretty good spot to be, a healthy reserve there. You do have to keep in mind, being a December 31 year end, obviously property taxes go out just before year end, and so that is in these amounts as well. Okay, the next couple of pages. So obviously the city of Monroe has robust business type activities as well with the utilities. You'll see some information there where, assets of the city were about 173 million at year end, while liabilities were about 76 million at year end. And the difference again between those numbers for the business type activities was about 96.8 million in net position for business type activities. The unrestricted net position, again, that amount that's available for operation, future operations in the business type activities, was about 23.34 million. I'm going to skip down to the statement of cash flows there. This is a real important statement, so as you look in the financial statements, cash flows always, kind of an important spot to kind of see how it's performing. You'll see their operating cash flows amounted to about 10.3 million. Obviously, those cash flows are oftentimes used from operations, reinvested in the system, et cetera. And so you'll see down below there purchase of capital assets of about 10.3 million as well. And then obviously paying down, long-term liabilities and everything at the bottom there. Ending cash increased in the approximate amount of about 44.8 million to a balance of about 62 million at year end. The next couple pages, and it goes, the next page and a half, this is kind of a Cliff Notes version to the financial statement footnotes, so as you're looking at those, you can kind of refer back here and see what each one of those are telling you. And then I'm going to skip over to page 18, and that is our required communications, and they go on for several pages here. And I just want to touch on a couple of these. One thing that we're required to disclose is significant difficulties encountered in the audit, or if we had any disagreements with management, about any accounting pronouncements or treatment of things in the financial statements. And I'm happy to report that we didn't have any significant difficulties in doing the audit. We didn't have any disagreements with management. The finance department and everybody outside of finance that we encountered and requested things of, they were forthcoming, timely, and really helped us to do a good, audit and get it timely reported to you this evening. On the next page 20, we did have some audit adjustments. They're included in the package behind this. They've all been delivered to management, gone over with management, and they've actually been reflected in the financial statements. So again, to ensure that they are correct. And then, of course, on page 20, independence. We are independent. That's kind of the cornerstone of what we do. We have to maintain that independence under our standards to be able to, for folks to be able to rely on the opinion that we're rendering on the financial statements. On the next page, 21, this normally would be where we have to report any findings that we had during the audit that the standards require us to cite as findings, whether it be significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. I'm happy to report we didn't have any findings this year. In fact, last year we did have 3 findings during the audit, and all of those were resolved during the year. And so that's all we can ask. I mean, that's great. We'd love to come in kind of after having those items and seeing that those are cleared up, during the audit during the year for our audit process. So really good there. We did have things here. You'll see them in parentheses there called management points. These are recommendations, especially, when it comes to the first two. There's no requirement on these. These are just things that are kind of byproducts of the audit that we saw that we thought would better the city or better a process or what have you. And so we made mention of those under 1 and 2. And then number 3 and 4 under management points, they are accounting nature, so theoretically they are required. This would have been proper treatment for accounting, but they didn't rise to the level of finding. They were immaterial in nature, but we still thought we would mention them. Again, all of these have been gone over with management, and to take, consider those for any corrective action. The rest of the document, I'm not going to go through, but if you have any trouble sleeping, certainly refer back to here. These are the new accounting standards that are coming out, and that's kind of why my hair thins, is they keep us real busy on new standards coming out fast and furious. They did give us some relief this last year because of COVID-19 on the delay on the implementation of some of those standards, but now that year's gone, and so it's coming due that we're going to have to start implementing some of these new standards. So I always want to keep the council, I want to keep finance, everybody on abreast of what's kind of coming down the pipeline on those items, and to ensure that we're working together to properly implement those. So that's the rest of the document. The first one's on leases, and that's probably the one that's probably the most legwork, if you will, on the city's finance department, and just to make sure we stay ahead of, so that, the accounting's kind of easy, the legwork and getting the information together, just staying up on that. And that's my presentation. If you've got any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer those.
Thank you, Mr. Braley. Are there any questions? Are there any questions for Beth? Beth, I want to tell you how much I appreciate the work that you do every day and winning the award again for presentation. So this will be how many years in a row? I think we're heading up to 15, 16, 17, right? Well, thank you. I know that's not easy. Also, I admire every person who works day to day on this team to keep our financial situation in good shape. And I know, Logan, that's something that you and Beth work really hard on. So thank you. Without a question, I'll entertain a motion to accept.
I move to accept.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Gregory and a second by Mr. Larry Bradley. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for
I know
having
y'all are working your fingers to the bone, so thank you. Move to the first reading of the ordinance to amend the official zoning map. Mr. Rosenthal is not here.
All right, thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Donnie.
This is an ordinance to adopt the official zoning map of the city of Monroe, Georgia. The mayor and council of the city of Monroe hereby ordain as follows. Article 1, the official zoning map, city of Monroe, Georgia, as shown in the attached Exhibit A, attached hereto, and incorporated fully herein by reference, and currently displayed at this public hearing, and having been made available for public view at City Hall at all times since May 3rd, 2021, leading up to its adoption pursuant to Georgia law, is hereby made the official zoning map of the city of Monroe, Georgia. This map is a public record and shall be kept on file at City Hall at 215 North Broad Street, Monroe, Georgia, 30655, in the records of the city clerk. Article 2, all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith are hereby repealed. Article 3, this ordinance shall take effect from and after its adoption by the mayor and council of the city of Monroe, Georgia. This constitutes the first reading this 8th day of June, 2021.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions for Donnie? Hearing none, we'll come back to that next month. Also moving to the first reading of the zoning ordinance code text amendment. Donnie.
All right. This is an ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance of the city of Monroe, Georgia. The mayor and council of the city of Monroe hereby ordain as follows. Article 1, the zoning ordinance of the city of Monroe officially adopted June 10th, 2014, and effective July 1st, 2014, as thereafter amended, is hereby amended by implementing the below text amendments as follows. Table of Contents, Article 6. Article 3, Section 310, Table 1, Article 3, Section 310.1, Article 5, Section 520.2, Article 5, Section 570, Article 5, Section 570.1, Article 6, Section 620, Article 6, Section 620.2, Article 6, Section 620.3, Article 6, Section 620.3, Table 5, Article 6, Section 640, Article 6, Section 645, Article 6, Section 646, and Article 7, Section 700.2. Article 2 of the reading of this ordinance. All ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith are hereby repealed. Article 3, the ordinance shall take effect from and after its adoption by the mayor and council of the city of Monroe, Georgia. This constitutes the first reading this 8th day of June, 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Yes, he is Mr. Wright. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we will do second reading next month. I believe that's on the 6th, correct?
Yes, sir.
Also, returning to the application of the spirituous liquors and beer and wine on-premise consumption at the Brown Fig, I neglected to ask if the application was in order and have been directed by the attorneys to let you know that everything is in order. So thank you, and that continues to pass. Right now, we would normally come to my update, and pretty much we've had a whole lot of discussion about everything that I normally would update anyway. So we'll skip over that, and I need a motion to adjourn to executive session, please.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Ross Bradley and a second by Ms. Malcolm. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. That passes. Meeting adjourned for a few minutes.
You might want to say